Welcome to the Digital Insurance Agent Podcast. So glad you have chosen to join us today. And with me is Nikki Coner. She is the CEO of Package to Profit. Thank you for joining us today, Nikki.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are most welcome, and we are going to be diving into a couple of episodes together over the next several weeks. And so, this first topic we're going to dive into today is mastering sales, the art of the close. And we want to talk about high performance closing techniques. And we're just going to dive right in. We've got a lot of great stuff for you today. And so, to our audience, we want to welcome you. Grab your notepad, grab your pen. You got a lot to take away today. So, Nikki, tell us a little bit about your personal journey and how did you develop your mastery in sales and become the go-to strategist for high stakes closing?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me is when about 15 years ago, I actually was in the nursing field and I kind of stumbled into sales, like a lot of us do. And I knew that there was a bigger calling for me in business. I just didn't know what or how I was going to get there. And I had a friend or colleague that saw something in me. Now, while I was going to nursing school, I minored in business. I didn't know how I was going to use it. But I actually minored in accounting. And I knew it was going to be something with money, but wasn't necessarily sure what I was going to do and how I was going to make impact. But I had a friend who called me who was opening up a call center here in California. And what the call center did was it would call for different businesses where someone would go to your website, they would inquire about your services. So let's say they go to State Farm and they're like, hey, I want to inquire about your services. Back then they didn't have a way for people to actually work or call them directly. So there was like this huge lead list of people that were not being dialed on and called in on. So we basically became a call center for local businesses, just like your local state farms, your farmers. We were also in the automotive space. So we ended up being bought out by a major automotive company. But essentially, that's how we got started. And so, with the drop of a hat, I had to be ready to respond with the client who would call in. They could call about State Farm, they could call about farmers, they could call about Mercedes-Benz, like they could call about different companies that we were representing. And I just got really, really good at it and turning a complete stranger into, a sold out person for the company and turning them into a client or upselling them on a different service if they had, a policy, getting them connected back with the agent to sell them on life insurance or whatever the next package was. So that's how I got started.
Oh, that's awesome. So what inspired you to go out on your own to create Package to Profit? And then how has your background really shaped your philosophy on closing deals?
Yeah, so essentially, what happened was I ended up going to so from that deal, it actually ended up being bought out from another company. They wanted that to be completely exclusive, which left me by myself, right? And as a matter of fact, I knocked on a State Farm agent's door, and I saw the need for what it was that I was doing, and ended up approaching them. They've now been in business, going on almost 30 years now. He's actually getting ready to retire and sell his books. But that was the very first entry into the space. And I just saw a need for insurance. I would study that, individuals would go and take their tests, and over 50% were not passing on the first round. And I realized that once they did pass, well, if they're barely passing the exam, like how are they going to succeed and thrive? And so I really started catering towards providing solutions for insurance agents in the space to help them once they got their license. How were they going to continue to grow and scale? And that's how we became Package to Profit. Essentially, we would serve various different industries because they heard about what I did for the call center, and I would support the back end operations, not only just sales, but I would, make sure that the systems and everything was streamlined on the back end. And then I was doing too many things. So I decided I want to hone in on insurance. And that's how I planted my foot in this industry, in this space.
Fantastic. Well, of course, everybody listening is going to go, that's great, but help me sell more. So that's what we're going to get into. So let's talk some techniques and tactics here. Of course, closing techniques is always, a huge part of what we're talking about. Leads come in, we've got to get them from just getting information to actually doing business. So, what are your top three proven methods for sealing the deal in today's competitive landscape? Because everybody is, price shopping, tire kicking, comparing. How do you get people out of that mode to really signing on the line?
So I use three different proven methods. So one is storytelling with structure, two is mirror and matching, and three is the yes ladder. But now, before I get into that, I do want to say one huge thing that a lot of agents miss is 70% of your clients, they actually don't leave you because of price, right? I'm going to be honest with you. My family as well, we are with an insurance company that is not the cheapest. They are actually one of the highest, and we know that we are being overcharged, right? But we love our agent. Our agent checks in with us and has a relationship with us. And so we keep that, right? And so that is one of the things that I really help our clients do is set themselves apart in the industry. So let's talk about storytelling with structure, right? So that is one of the ways that we do it. So you would paint a picture, right, with your product, with your client. And so I love to use EI, so emotional intelligent storytelling that really sets a clear outcome. So 65% of the baby boomers, for instance, right? If you're talking to a baby boomer, you need to understand who you're talking to, which leads into mirror and match, but you need to understand who you're talking to. 65% of them do not have a retirement plan, right? So when you are having that conversation with them, share with them how you have helped individuals, baby boomers, right, who didn't have a clear plan to now having a successful plan when you're on the phone with them, right? And when they're calling in, most of my clients, 95% of them have like an office where people are calling in. How are you going to set yourself apart? You are going to share stories, right? They're already familiar with the product, but what are some ways that you can show that you can connect with the client? And then number two is mirror and match, right? People buy from people who get them, right? So you want to make sure that you're able to provide that emotional safety for them. We On one of our insurance policies, we had to get another policy to cover our home, for instance, right? Because our provider was dropped us for our home. You need to connect with your audience. If you're here in California and your clients are being dropped from home insurance, you need to be able to mirror and match that. You need to understand and describe to them and maybe, provide solutions and have empathy for them, right? In Florida, a lot of homeowners are losing it as well. Unfortunately, my brother's in Florida. So they're experiencing something a little bit similar to us, but they went through it first because they have hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of followed suit with these fires. And then the yes ladder. So you're going to stack affirmatives before getting the big yes. You build confidence with the micro yes at a time. So the way that you do that is you're asking questions that you're going to get a yes, right? So you want to get at least three yeses before you go for, okay, now let's go ahead and proceed with closing on the policy, right? So you want to make sure it's a great fit. So you'll say, hey, Mr. Jones, I understand that you're calling in today because you recently lost your coverage for your home and we're able to cover that. Is that correct? Yes, ma'am, that is why I'm calling. Number two, a lot of times they're not really looking for price. Sometimes they are. But if they are, address the part about the price. Because I've noticed when I'm shadowing different agents in the office, they avoid the price. You don't want to avoid. Avoiding gives someone that sticky feeling of like, oh, I'm being sold to. So you just want to make sure, hey, Mr. Jones, your concern is really about the price, right? And they'll say, yes, I am. Address that and say, well, I understand that your, reason for the price is this. This is what we can do in order to, share with you the difference in why you'll be paying a little bit more with us, right? And then you'll break down the different components. There are certain things that certain companies cover that other companies do not, right? And so knowing that to your advantage and being able to match that with the client and get that that third yes is very key. So those are the three proven methods that I love to use. Number one, storytelling with structure, which leads into mirror or match because you're going to be matching that client with where they're at. And then three, getting that yes at least 3 times on the call before you're like, okay, let's go ahead and close the policy.
That's great. So one of the things that you focus on as well with your agents is teaching them how to read the room and adapt the close based on the emotional and logical clues. And you kind of touched on this a moment ago. How
Mhm.
do you teach agents to do that? How do you teach them to be present in the moment and not miss those things?
So first off, I want to say, y'all, Carl is asking stuff that I charge people for. But I'm gonna give you the sauce, right? Because there's so many agents out there that can definitely use this. So if you're listening to this, go ahead and get a pen and paper. It is called the Velo method. Okay, it's a Velo framework. So the way that you match it is you're gonna do the voice, right? So the tonality. If you're talking with an older person, you're not going to talk fast. You're going to slow down, right? And then if you are talking to them and they're talking slow, your energy is not going to be fast or upbeat like I'm talking right now. You'd say, you know what, Mrs. Jones, I understand, right? And so, and then language. So, what type of language are they using? Are they using a scarcity language? Are they using, um, like affirmative, like they're firm, they know what they want. Like pay attention to the type of language that they're using. And then objections. What are the objections that they have? At almost every office I go into, people run from the objections. And one thing I do for my agents actually is I actually call in as a client and I actually, because I'm the only one, especially when it comes to State Farm, they don't allow you to record the recordings. Um, and so with that is I can call in and I can record, right? And I could get the feedback. But one of them that they do is they run away from the objections. And you have to understand that your buyer is now more educated than ever, right? And so the agents who are training you in the space, especially to my millennials and Gen Z, that's a whole nother beast. Um, but especially to those, you have to understand that, the agents who have built their agency have built it on a different industry and a whole different marketing arena, right? Whereas today your consumer is much more educated. They probably have gone through 3 to 5 companies. They may be like, my mom, for instance, she shops every year. My mom and my dad, as a matter of fact, they shop every year, right? And so they go with who provides the best bang for their buck. So understand you address those objections, you address those concerns. And that's pretty much the framework that I use. And I will say, one super tip for you guys is if you notice that a client is calling you and shopping around in your CRM, put in a note 9 months into the policy. Hey, call Mr. Jones and check in with him, because he's a shopper, right? If you notice that in the onboarding, make those notes. And that will increase your retention so much. So
Excellent. So, as you've been working with agents, what are some of the most common mistakes you see them making when trying to close, and how could they avoid those mistakes?
yeah, so one of the biggest thing that I see is because it is such a high traffic industry that I see people trying to do is a rush the close, right? I see it all the time, especially with individuals on social media. They're like, oh, well, Mrs. Jones, I pitched her a policy that this was the best fit for her, and she decided to not go with us or whatever. Like they're bashing the client just because the client said no. And no doesn't necessarily mean no, never, but it could be no, not right now, right? And how can you plant that seed as a person of interest? So that's one of the biggest thing is like I see people rushing the close. They don't get those 3 yeses to align. So we do this thing called alignment before assignment. That's one of our main core values in Package to Profit. And so they're not aligning the client with the actual offer and they're not getting the client's buy-in, right? You're not setting yourself apart. And so that is the biggest thing as well. Another thing is that I see is you guys aren't asking for referrals. Like, even if I get a no on the phone, I walk away with still 3 referrals. Like, if someone is like, I'm sold out on my agent, 9 times out of 10, almost 10 out of 10, I'll say, um, the agent has not educated that person on how to send them referrals. So
Mhm.
if you connected with them, and yes, they love their agent, but they love the relationship that they're starting to build with you. Well, hey, Mr. Jones, can you go ahead and give me 3 people that you know that could benefit from this information, that you know that they're shoppers? I understand that you're planning, right? Like me and my husband, we're planning in our with our agent, but there may be, other agents. Like I have my agents all the time. I say, give me your cards, because when I'm out and about, if I'm talking with the shopper, I slide them your information. And that's what I do. And so you want to make sure that you're asking for referrals, even if there are a no, not right now. And one slick thing that I do is I'll get those 3 referrals. 100% of the time, I'll work with my agents to get them as sold in as clients. And then I'll have that person call the person who referred them and say, thank you. I have each of them call. And 9 times out of 10, when they share an amazing experience with them, they can get that person to convert and work with you.
Fantastic. So every agent is going to hear objections along the way.
Yes.
What's your framework for objection handling to where it doesn't feel pushy, it doesn't feel defensive?
Yeah, so one of the things you'll notice with a lot of my frameworks is repetition. So one of the things that I use is called the CARE framework. So number one is you're going to clarify the concern, right? Which is pretty much what I've already said before, but it's just in a different way. So you clarify the concern. What is the concern that they're objecting to? Now, most of the time you'll get them to be able to share what it is their concern is, and why they're calling around. But the more you get them open, the better, right? So I'll give you an example. One agent that I was in the office with, the concern of the client when we really got back to it, because the agent was ready to hang up. And I'm like, no, push, there's something more. Come to find out that that driver actually had a suspended license and was embarrassed, right? And it was on their record, and they had been denied by uh 3 AAA. I'm not gonna company, right? Because they were very strict. Their spouse was on the policy and they couldn't, they were embarrassed to have to say that they had to have an SR22 or whatever. And that was just a concern, right? But once that agent opened the door and created a way for them, they were able to do which is part of the CARE framework as well. So, which is acknowledge that emotion. Hey, Mr. Jones, like you're really concerned about your suspended license in the past. I understand you have a SR22. Is that right? And then you get a yes, right? So that'll be one way for you to get a yes. And then you're going to reframe the value. Well, you know what? Here at State Farm, we do things a little bit differently. We're very personalized. You have the same agent, which is what you'll find most. Well, State Farm is that, you'll be working with the same office. Let them know, like, hey, this is a relationship that they're building, and they're not just signing up, and each time they call in, they're getting a different person. They're working with the same office. And so give them that value and let them know that that's there. And then you're going to extend the invitation again, right? So once you have overcame the objection, you're going to end with E, which is extend the invitation. So I'll start from the top again because I kind of ran it into it. So it's the CARE framework. C is going to be clarify their concern. 2 is going to acknowledge their emotion. And then R is going to reframe the value that they're going to be getting from you. And then E is extend the invitation again. And once you extend the invitation again, if another objection comes, start from C again. Clarify the concern, right? Keep going until when you extend that invitation, they're like, okay, I'm ready. Here's my card.
That's great. Yeah, and I love what you talked about. Pushing through turned what could have seemed like a loss into a real win. And so that's, you know, so key. I think so many times agents give up too soon,
Mhm.
and don't push through. And you delved into really the next place we were going to go, and that's relationship building in the
Mhm.
close. So,
Mhm.
what are your tips for creating that instant trust? You know, we've got this little short window of time, and you brought up something I think is super critical because I think we've seen a bit of a shift really post COVID, where people are starting to swing back into that. I kind of want the relationship. The convenience is nice, but I kind of miss having a real person to talk to that is consistent. Let's talk a little bit about that, what you're seeing, and how to build that relationship and trust quickly.
Yeah, so to gain it quickly, I use this one question when they're calling in is what matters to you most, Mr. Jones, when choosing coverage for you? Right? And they'll tell you, like, what is the most important thing? It's really everything for you to really get the connection straight off the bat. And the best way to do so is stop asking yes or no questions. You need to get them to open up and share with you why they're calling. And understand that they don't buy policies. They do buy protection, but now they're starting to buy protection from people that they trust, right? Before it used to be, oh, I'd go to any random mom and pop. But guess what? A lot of these mom and pops are closing down. And the reason being is because they kept trying to take the big approach to the marketplace where there was no personal connection. And you have the advantage to build that, especially my State Farm agents that are listening. That is 90% of our client, 90 to 95% of our clientele is State Farm. You guys have the advantage to have a personalized approach with your clients. So use that to your advantage, build that trust. Um, and then you also can build instant trust, right? By asking the questions about what matter. And then you're going to lead with curiosity. So instead of you just going into like you hearing their concern and trying to fix it, say, oh, okay. And you say it back to them and you be curious with it, right? Forget your credentials, forget, you went to school for, to get your license or whatever, and think about that person on the other side of the phone, right? I think that's the hardest thing for agents is to realize how it felt being a client calling in to get coverage.
Oh, that's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. So, for agents that are working in this referral heavy business, how do you make sure that you close well without damaging the trust chain from the referrer? So there's that balance. How do we make sure that we protect, the trust that they've put into us, but we're still closing well. We're not forgetting what we're here to do, uh, but we balance that with the trust factor.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things is to just honor, right, the trust transfer, right? And just because someone refers someone to you does not always mean that the same thing that they got with you is going to be the best benefit for their family. And so one thing that I teach my agents to say is, if Jenny trusts me, I don't take that lightly, right? Let's go ahead and find the right solution that fits for you too, right? And so you're not just riding on the fact that Jenny referred that person to you, but now you're earning it, right? Because now you're going into, okay, this is a situation for you. Jenny may have $1 million policy because that works out best for her, but you may not qualify for that, right? And so just genuinely letting them know, like, hey, this is no cookie cutter. This is something that is going to be customized for your family. And so still diving in, still taking that time. A lot of times that I have seen when I'm looking at processes from insurance agents who are getting referrals, which is very scarce, but they are getting referrals. And what I mean by referrals is very scarce is by referrals from current clients. Now, there are a lot of agents who are getting referrals. Well, California, the biggest one used to be real estate agents, but now a lot of policies are no longer doing home, so they now can't offer home. So, with that being said, the biggest issue that I've seen is that they just take it as if, hey, this person is coming to me, they are going to be referred, and they don't build that relationship with them. They just think that they're, just because Jenny gave them the number, they're going to sign up. And that's not always the case. You still have to work for it.
That's good. And then when we talk about following up, how can you
Ooh, I
authentically
love it.
follow up without sounding like you're chasing the sale?
Mhm. All right, so this is another golden tip, okay? So One thing that I do is that is very unique to the agents that I work with is we do have the ability to have client appreciation days because they all have offices. So we have client appreciation days. So maybe we'll host a client appreciation day where people can come out. And you could call Jenny and say, "Hey, Jenny, you know what? I know you haven't made a decision yet, but we're having an opening night and would love for you to come out." And here's the thing. Every time that you have a touch point with the client, you want to reveal another question that you may not know. So let's say Jenny is pregnant and you know Jenny is due in March, right? You can always follow up and just see, "Hey, Jenny, I know you probably have gone through or have gotten coverage for yourself, but I know you were expecting, did you, get coverage for your child, right?" And this is for those agents that can diversify their portfolio and not just offer auto and home, but that can also offer life. And so that's what I would do. Another follow-up reason could be, "Hey, you took Jenny's birthday down, right?" I have a systematic approach. Certain companies make this challenging, but I do have an approach where, you can send a card out or a simple text message just saying, "Hey, happy birthday to Jenny," and it could just be automated. And so that's one way. Another way is, like I said, the customer appreciation or bring a friend day. Like it depends on the theme of the office and how many, clients they have and so forth, as far as what theme that we choose. But we just pick a theme. And we invite individuals that for whatever reason we didn't get them to close for them to experience the culture and the personalization for that client. So those are different things, get creative in ways that you can connect with them to where you're not just like, "Hey, Jenny, did you get coverage?" A lot of times, like they have to get coverage before they even leave the dealership, right? So if they're calling you from the dealership, the chances are they've already gotten coverage. And so you can use that. One last method that I absolutely love, it is a swipe method that I use. And with the swipe method is I follow up with the client because I know that they possibly have already gotten coverage. And I say, "Hey, Jenny, I know you already have coverage right now, but I just wanted to do a quick survey so that I can get feedback, right?" And so you ask them a series of questions. Now, this I am not going to give you the whole tea to, but you're going to ask them a series of questions to understand their experience with their new provider, right? You're going to understand, you're going to gauge on a scale of 1 to 10. I'll give you that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are they with the choice and the decision that they made, right? And a lot of times that 1 to 10 number is actually around like a 6 or 5, believe it or not. But they just were rushed to get that policy and they don't feel like going through the process right now. And so then you'll create a strategic way in following up with them in a couple of months. And they're already locked in for, well, they're not stuck, but they're locked in for a year. So maybe you follow up with them in about 90 days, right? Because they've just made the decision. So I give them different strategies on how to do that. So those are ways that you can authentically follow up without being salesy, but building rapport.
Fantastic. So, to our audience, you have gotten just a preview. So this is the appetizer. We're going to do a series here. So, Nikki, how can our audience get in touch with you? How can they find out more about you, about your company? And what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so we actually have a info session where we host every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you would just go to packagetoprofit.com. So package, PACKAGED, and then TO, profit.com. And you will do /info, INFO. And you would be able to register for our upcoming info session. You'll be able to bring your pressing questions to our info session, and we'll be able to share with you how our profit post blueprint can actually help scale your agency.
Perfect. And we'll have links to that down below in the description. And Nikki, it's been great having you with us. And we will have you on our next episode with Nikki and look forward to our audience joining us. And thank you for being with us on the Digital Insurance Agent podcast today.